Hello and welcome to The Final Bell, the official Geelong Cats podcast. It is great to have you with us for another week. MegMac is with me again. Meg, great to see you.
Oh, great to see you too. It's actually, it's my first podcast post-loss.
Okay.
So you're going to have to lift me.
We will lift you. I'll tell you one thing that might lift you a little bit is we have a sponsor now of the podcast.
Hey.
So it is very, very exciting to announce that the podcast is brought to you each week by our friends at Morris, personal finance solutions, expert advice and finance specialists, all in one place. Morris Finance have obviously been a big supporter of the club for a long, long time, but they are on board with the podcast. So a huge thank you to the guys at Morris for coming on board and allowing Meg and I to do what we love every single week, which is to talk the Cats.
Yeah, we do. Even this week.
Yes.
Because positives. There were positives.
Got a front up after a loss. We love talking about wins, but we will talk about that one. We'll dive into that. The other nice little exciting news is that Mathew Stokes, the great Matty Stokes, will join us a bit later on.
You're pretty well connected, aren't you?
Oh, well, I think Stokes is just happy to come and have a chat. Yeah. He's just a very good man and an absolute favourite of the fans for the way that he played his football career, the type of person that he is. He's going to chat about some exciting things coming up in 2 weeks' time as part of Sir Doug Nicholls' round. We'll also get him to touch on some of the lessons he learnt throughout his footy career and knowing Stokesy too, we might have a little bit of fun as well.
All right. Looking forward to it.
That cheekiness is certainly there. We are going to talk Cats and Tigers from Friday night. We'll have a little look ahead to the Fremantle game coming up this week. And we'll also get to your questions, as we love to do. But let's dive straight into the footy, Meg. Where do we start? Was it simply a case of Richmond played their best game of the year, which I think, yes. But we're a little bit off. Personnel was a little bit down. Our kicking was not great. Let's just put that out there on the table. And I don't just mean kicking for goal. Our field kicking felt off as well. It just didn't click for us, which seems like too easy an explanation, but there wasn't that connection and movement of the footy that we've seen in the past few weeks.
Does it click more if you do convert early? Do you feel like it sort of starts to snowball when you're thinking we're not getting reward and when you're missing goals, do you start to feel that, we're off? Like what comes first, I wonder? And
flip that around too when the opposition aren't sure about the way they've been playing for a few weeks. They're committed to a certain way of playing and the goals are just adding up quickly.
Yes,
what was it, 5 or 6 goals straight by the Tigers? They were probably feeling great. Oh, yeah, okay, this works. Yeah. Whereas the Cats, a little bit of frustration and even, as I said, the ball movement at times into the forward line, instead of being to Tom Hawkins or Jeremy Cameron's advantage, it was kind of sat on the head, or it was kind of to the advantage of the opposition player, and then they started to grow with confidence and intercept marked, and they got their game rolling.
Yeah, I mean, for years they've had a great defensive unit, the Tigers, and it certainly seems that they were happy, their pressure on the ball is back. It allows their defence to hold, and I felt like, when Jez is up the ground getting touches, sort of D-mid maybe, he's looking up and going, kicking becomes harder when you're trying to kick to a 2v1 or a 3v1 in certain circumstances. So challenging to hit the scoreboard.
Yeah, I was asked about it the following day in my duties on radio on ABC, and I was asked, would they be bitterly disappointed with that performance? Or was there anything greater than that as well, I think was where the question was leading to. And I thought, you've got to be disappointed. Friday night game against a team that you really want to beat, a team that's beaten you in a recent grand final and all of that. So absolute disappointment is there. But I didn't think despair was there.
No, certainly not.
Because big elements or parts of the game, Geelong played some good football, broke down occasionally with their skill execution. Amazingly, Meg, it was the first time in 77 games the Cats fielded a younger team than their opposition.
Isn't that? Well, that's at least 3 seasons. That's about 3 seasons worth of football. Incredibly young team, and some of them had some flashes of brilliance, and at other times you're thinking, that's your third game of footy, and it's a big stage, so completely understandable.
We saw Tanner Bruin again show those glimpses. And absolutely, Tanner's not doing it for an entire game yet. But there's not too many who at game number 20 or game number 30 or 40 or 50. Do it for entire games. Yeah. You know, again, there's these certain people who've spoiled it for everyone, and Nick Dacos and probably our old mate Joel Selwood going back a while, who you expect them to just be able to sustain it from start to finish in a game. Younger players take time, but we're seeing it from Tanner Bruin. We got to see the excitement of Jai Clark. Came in, found the ball early, I think laid 5 tackles, was it, in about 25% game time?
Yeah, that's which I think had him as second most on the field. I mean, looking at that, walking straight up to a centre bounce, and he was almost an incredible clearance, and then was in that passage of play three more times. So incredible start, from an exciting start, so much speculation. But back to Tanner for a second, and the thing that I loved about him on the weekend was, again, and we saw it I think last week at home here, he seems like a winner. You know what I mean? He's hard and he can finish, and it's just I think you can tell a lot by how someone sort of reacts to a goal or to a moment in a match, and I loved what I saw.
So I know Tanner, and I've known him before he was drafted. It's always been a beautiful kick of the ball, a really skilled player, and seeing him hit AFL level for the Giants initially, and then the first handful of games at Geelong, I haven't seen completely that really incredible skill come out just yet, that beautiful kicking, until a little bit on Friday night. That goal that he kicked, and I think the reason for that is you are so rushed in your skill when you're playing your early games. You think the whole world is coming at you. You've just got to fire that kick off, so you don't take that fraction of a second to compose, and that superb skill doesn't flow just yet. Because you're worried if you're tackled, you're going to be caught holding the ball.
Yeah.
Now he's starting to realise, okay, I've got a body now that is strong enough. I'm strong enough through the hips that if a tackler is a little bit off centre coming at me because I've evaded, I can break that tackle, take the extra 3 steps and hit the kick
be precise, now.
And that's an outstanding evolution in a player's game, to go, I'm not as worried about the tackler as what I was 15 games ago. Totally.
I feel like you could see that in some of the really under 5 gamers on the weekend. There are a few rush kicks forward, and then you contrast that with like Brian Myers' game and his composure by foot and his ability to see his teammates and to see the forward 50 or the sort of forward half of the ground the way he does. And, he's got a fair few. He's not just kicking in that forward V. He's so creative with how he's able to find players, and he probably should have really racked up the goal assist again on the weekend, but we got to finish.
I joked on radio. I said, as a defender, you're taught read the kicker's cues.
Oh yeah,
so
impossible.
Read their eyes, read which angle of their body, read the side of the ground they can only use. It's impossible against Grind, because at times no one's sure where he's going, but he spots forward free, inside 50, and uses him beautifully. One of the things I did love, Megan, and I know it's going to feel like at the moment we're being super positive, but there's a reason for that, because the Cats lost on Friday night, and they, again, disappointment rather than despair this is part of the growth of the group, and not just for this season, but in years to come. With the players missing, Dangerfield and Guthrie and Close, Stanley, Stengel, De Koning, a big Gary Rowan, big group of quality players missing, is where this team can not only be in season 2023, but where it can be in 2025 and beyond. The starting centre bounce that you alluded to before with Jai Clark was, I think it was Max Holmes, Tanner Bruin, Jai Clark. And Tom Atkins may have been in there as well. Yeah. My mind just started going, well, there's our starting midfield at different centre bounces in 2 seasons' time. And yes, there are going to be moments where Prestia, Martin and Bolton get a handle of them, get a hold of them for a couple of minutes. But there's that growth factor in that group.
No, it's so exciting. And, if we weren't... the silver lining to what is an unfortunate list of injuries at the moment is those players are getting exposure at the top level, as you're saying, and yet we're still in the 8. So we're still, I think, in exactly the same win-loss ratio as this time last year, and you're getting some experience into your depth, which is good place to be in.
My son, Max, my eldest boy, went to bed on Saturday night,
Yeah.
went to bed, and he was a bit despondent about
Yeah.
the Cats.
Yeah.
We'd watched the replay again on Saturday, and he said, I don't think we'll win the premiership this year, Dad.
Oh.
And I said, do you realise, Maxie, that after 9 games last year, the Cats were 5-4? What are they this year? Of course, the answer was 5-4, and his face just lit up in a smile. I said, it's not...
So sweet.
Yeah, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, we can do this. Sometimes after a bad loss, we've got to remind ourselves it's a long, long season and a long journey to be part of. I do want to pump up Tom Atkins, though, too. Amongst that young group, when you've got a player like that who 15 contested possessions, 6 clearances, a team-high 6 tackles, to go with a couple of goal assists, you need your experienced, tough players standing up.
Yeah, and it's exciting to refer to him now as that experienced tough player. You know, for a couple of years it was he's broken into the midfield, how great, his journey's fantastic, and now you're looking at him to turn games and to set the bar high even when things perhaps aren't going the way the team would want them to. So shout out Tommy.
Yeah, big shout out Tommy Atkins. As we progress from Friday night, and as I said, the disappointment of a loss like that, moving into another challenge going to Fremantle in Perth, who just feel like they're building a tiny bit of momentum. They've had a tough season so far. It is week 1 of Sir Doug Nicholls' round, which will be 2 weeks. And as I mentioned before, we'll be talking with Mathew Stokes a little bit later on. Just quickly looking at that game, Meg, and the team potentially. Brad Close comes back as a certainty from suspension. I still hold that it was an unlucky suspension. But let's not go into that too much. Tyson Stengel getting closer.
Yes.
We'll have to wait and see on that one. Jack Henry getting closer. We'll have to wait and see on that one as well.
Yeah, to hear that Jack Henry might be back, and we want him to be as certain as you can possibly be when you've got a recurring injury like that. But I feel for Jack every time the commentators are talking about who's not in the team and Jack doesn't get a mention. I'm like, Jack Henry's not playing everyone. He's a pretty important player. I don't know which end of the ground he'd be coming back to, but it's as much as we're happy to expose the younger players and get that experience, and I'm sure they'll be playing this week as well. The quality that might be coming back in is good to hear.
Yeah, so and there is a tipping point, I think, when you're playing good teams, what Richmond are. Yeah. I believe strongly in Richmond still, by the way, just a side issue. And then Fremantle in Perth, there is a point where you want that balance right of exposing young players, new players, under 20 gamers, under 20 years of age, combined with some experience. So to get 1 or 2 of those back and just tip the balance back in favour.
Yeah, there's a balance, and then there's, I think, their role clarity and specificity is enhanced when you've got the experience around you, right?
Absolutely. And I think to throw in Reece Stanley's absence, it continues to be felt, and that's not taking anything away from Johnny Segler or what Mark Blitzarves is trying to do, and in the previous week what Sam de Koning was doing. But you just see when Mark Blitzarves is forced to shoulder more of the ruck, you don't have that extra little lever to pull in the midfield and around the contest. So Blitzarves doing that will be important. The VFL, Meg, on the weekend had a draw. Did you know that?
Had a draw?
Yeah. I was quite surprised to read that myself. I didn't realise that. Against the Tigers, 75 apiece, the VFL. So hopefully a couple of players in some form and maybe get an opportunity out of that. The VFLW did get back to their winning ways. Pretty dominant, Meg, by the girls.
Yeah, I went and watched them yesterday. It was a 3 p.m. Mother's Day game, which I don't know that many were impressed by, but had some great mothers on the coaching staff who I know enjoyed the day, and it was a beautiful day and some good footy by the girls. It's funny,
just quickly, a side issue, nothing compared to that, but we as a junior basketball coaching helping out with my boys basketball, threw around the idea on a WhatsApp message group. Oh yeah. All the parents saying, should we cancel the training session for the basketball on Mother's Day?
A Sunday training session.
Sunday training session, yeah. And I fired back with, let's be honest, the greatest present we can give to, I was thinking of my wife, was to get my kids out of the house to training and just letting her have a moment of peace and quiet. So I figured a sport to go to is not a bad thing on Mother's Day.
I will say Elise and Anna said exactly that yesterday. They said, I'm quite happy to be here.
Just relax a little bit. No, but well done. They continue to be top of the ladder.
Yeah, they do.
Yes.
Go the girls.
Fantastic. Excellent. A dominant win kept Darebin Falcons goalless.
Goalless.
Which is always nice.
Again.
Darebin, they're not obviously not as strong as they once were. Or
Not as strong as when I was running around with them early. No, they're not as strong as they once were, but they're a community club, and we love that out down here.
Oh, there we go. No Meg, no Darebin.
And they're actually their head coach and a couple of their players are former Cats AFLW players, so shout out to them. And congratulations to Asta O'Connor, former AFLW player, now head coach of Darebin Falcons. She and her partner Kate, who's a Cat supporter, welcomed baby Lily last week. So I went to the game and met Lily, which was lovely.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Congratulations. That's great news. All right, let's get to some questions because
let's go.
I do want to answer some of these questions. I also want to leave enough time for Mathew Stokes is about to walk in and join us. It'd be great to have a chat with Stokesy ahead of Sir Doug Nicholls' round, but also get him to reminisce a bit about his career and some of the wonderful lessons he learnt along the way. All right, Meg. Well, this is both of us, but Clayton said to me, but we'll say Lingy and Meg. Yep. Who was the best First Nations player you played with and played against? Or let's just say saw play.
Okay.
At all.
Okay.
Does one spring to mind straight away?
Yeah, well, I currently play with Georgia Prasparkas, so I'm going to go with her. I mean, she's an incredible player, but I think has only scratched the surface of the player she will be. She might be the greatest ever, so we'll go with that.
Excellent. I like that.
Me. Back at you.
Played with. So Ronnie Burns early on in my career, very good. But I think played with. Oh, gee, I'm hesitant to do this because we're about to talk to him now. I'm going to have to pay him a compliment, and hopefully he's not listening.
Will he listen back?
in the room. It's got to be Stokesy or Trav Varco. I know Trav didn't end up with quite the longevity of Stokesy at Geelong. He then went on and had a terrific career at Collingwood. But for impact, Trav was magnificent at the Cats. It's got to be Stokesy. He's not in here yet, is he?
Will we tell him?
Okay, we won't tell him too much.
To
no, but Clayton, Stokesy was just... I still remember back to when Stokesy first... one of his first games here against Port Adelaide. This little guy out there playing as a small forward. It was actually... We weren't that strong a team yet. Yeah. And I reckon he put in about 8 efforts in a row. Chase, tackle, strip, got the ball back, effort, to the point where he was almost passed out from exhaustion. And this... new young kid got pretty much a standing ovation by the Cats fans as he finally headed to the bench for a breather. And I reckon a lot of us go, oh, okay, I think we've got someone pretty special here. He's going to give his absolute all.
Effort goes a long way, doesn't it?
Yeah, combined with skill and just his selflessness as a player and as a person, a wonderful footballer. Played against, I've got to go with... I was nearly about to say Goodsy, but actually I played against Buddy as well, didn't I? I played directly against Goodsy and was one of the hardest matchups I ever played on. I think just how inferior I felt running next to Adam Goods, who just was in first gear and I was about to faint from exhaustion. Meant that Goodsy was something special. But I suppose against it's got to be Buddy. 1,000 goals and the fear factor that I had against Buddy, what he could do on a field. There were moments where I thought, oh, hang on, Buddy's going to kick 25 goals today.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So he was scary. So, Clayton, I'll go with Buddy in that one, just over the great Adam Goods. Catherine poses this one, Meg. Is Brian Myers in the All-Australian discussion, or do I need to take the badges off my duffel coat? Catherine, do not take the badges off your duffel coat.
Stock up, Catherine.
Yeah. I'm an All-Australian selector, Meg, so I may recuse myself from this one. If we are meeting in 2 weeks' time, I think it is, the first meeting of the All-Australian Committee. Okay.
So can you speak on it until then or not? No, you can't.
Well, I'm just going to turn this one back on you. Okay. We name 50 players in that first meeting so that when we get to the end of year meeting, we're not affected by recency bias and we go back to that 50. We also categorise those 50 like, red hot, near certainties, having a great year, and watch. They might have had a handful of real big games, maybe had an injury or two, and maybe going to finish the year off big. In that 50, have you got Brian Myers?
Full disclosure, I haven't done my 50. I've got my backline faves.
This can be my question without notice.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I think it's in that half forward position is really hard because, as I think we said a couple of weeks ago, you're looking at a lot of resting mids and some incredible. Like you've got your Toby Greens and I don't know. I think you have to have an incredible year hitting the scoreboard. Look at Tyson Sengel's year last year, for example. And we know Gryan isn't making a name for himself in that respect this year, but his goal assists are just through the roof. So, I mean, with your Cats hat on, of course you'd have to have him in the conversation if he's leading the league in that stat. Gosh, can we add another one to our list?
All right.
We'll just go yes, Catherine.
Okay, yes, Catherine. Keep going.
I'm in the easiest position in the world, yes.
Keep going. Steve says, the fact that Asava is in the All-Australian discussion, are we talking about it enough? Is Asava in the All-Australian discussion? That 50 that you've just quickly jotted down for me, is Asava in the 50?
I said I was looking at the back line. I saw him in some rolling All-Australians online. Look, he had another incredible game. He had 10 coaches' votes last week, another incredible game this week. I think he's... we probably should have mentioned him in our game roundup, how well he was playing. I mean, his aerial capability is so good. Sometimes I think it might cost us a little bit at ground level sometimes. I don't know how you feel about that, but there are a few on the weekend I was like, we're going to be vulnerable out the back. Anyway, that's not the question. Yes,
in your 50?
He's in the 50. He's in the 50. You can't mark the ball like that and not be.
See, that's one of the good things. As you've noticed on this podcast, we can just keep putting players in
how many
things.
in the 50?
We don't have to justify the ones we leave out. So let's put Sav and Gryan both in the All-Australian discussions. 22
of the 50 play for the Cats. So
Perfect. Okay, continue on then, Meg. I want you to keep your defensive hat on.
Oh,
Joe,
boy. Okay.
Everyone healthy. Who is our starting back six?
Okay. Let's write them out. Well, I guess we have to have Sav in there. If
just
that's
put him
what
in the
saying.
All-Australian team, yeah.
So he's in there. Tom Stewart's in there.
De Koning in there.
Guthrie's in there. De Koning. Duncan, Buse. Who am I forgetting? I've already named too many. No, that's 6.
Jack Henry.
I know. I think with the way it's shaping up at the moment, maybe he's forward. Are we too tall if we go Henry, De Koning, Sava?
Possibly. I'm leaving this to you. As you know, I'm just avoiding this.
I'm going to go down to the footy department and look them in the eye later on today.
I've just written 9 names down who are fitting into my back six. But
my fave, Zach. Oh, hang on.
No, that's Zach Guthrie. Then you got Zach Tui.
Okay.
All right. So you're only picking 3 talls. And
boy.
And you're going De Koning, Sav, Stewart.
Yep. And then I've got...
Then you got a small... You need someone like a Buser or a Connor to play on a dangerous...
Oh, hang on.
Small.
No. I'm going Kolajasny.
Oh, yes. Whoops, there you go. There's my 10th name.
And Guthrie.
All right.
Apologies, everyone else.
It's okay.
And you better mark the ball because we're quite tall.
As I said, you're allowed to just put names in
there. And mids, there better be pressure on the ball.
Don't you know, if it comes down too well, you blame the mids.
I often say to my teammates, this is all good for me because either I always give myself an out that by the time I've been put under pressure or done something wrong, something else has gone wrong up the field.
Oh, this is bringing back flashbacks of Milburn and Enright and Scarlett and that way they used to give feedback to us mids. All right, we've got to take a break. Stokes, he's just walked in, so I want to have a chat with him. Did you have a question without notice before we take a break?
Oh, I did have just a little one. We saw an exchange of jumpers post game, Hawke and Rewalt. Who would you have liked to have exchanged jumpers with?
Number one, I wouldn't have stood out in the middle of the MCG on a Friday night
I know.
shirtless. Hawkeye and Jack were both looking very good. I wouldn't have allowed that to happen.
Yep.
Or I would have had a quick tracksuit jacket to put on
pre-season game jumper swap.
Who? No. The best The best rivalry sort of I had in my early years looking up was I played on Nathan Buckley right through, and then he finished in the 07 prelim.
Yep.
It would have been too cold-hearted to say, hey, you want to swap jumpers? We're going through to the granny and you're all over. The best, most wonderful person/opponent I played on was Simon Black.
Okay.
Just a vicious competitor.
Yep.
But one of the nicest people you will ever meet in football. I loved the battles with him. I could always tell when Lee Matthews had fired him up a little bit and said, stop letting him get one over you. And then he'd return fire and he'd get one over me for the game. And then next time it'd be like, right, I owe Blackie one. Yeah. Just one of the great people in footy. Given the exchange could take place in the middle of the Gabba, a little bit warmer, I figure that might be a better way of going about it. I reading into that, by the way, just in case anyone's wondering, Jack instigated that from what I took from it, and Jack's probably finishing this year. That's not a secret, I don't reckon. He just wanted to exchange a jumper with another great key forward. Don't worry about Hawkeye. I don't think he was thinking that's the last time he'll be seen at the MCG against the Tigers. Hawkeye will be doing that plenty more times. Let's take a break because the great Mathew Stokes is in the house, and we're going to chat with him next.
Life is busy enough without more life admin. That's why Morris is now bringing their personal approach to personal finance. Their team is here to help you finance your next lifestyle asset with their free person-to-person service designed to find a finance deal that works best for you. Call Morris today on 1300 4MORRIS or head to morrisfinance.com.au.
Welcome back. It is great to have you with us on to the final bell, Meg, as promised. A former host of this podcast, one of the absolute fan favourites, Stokes is back. Hello, Mathew.
Hi, Cameron. It's good to see the podcast has gone downhill since I've left.
That hurts.
What are you saying about Meg?
No, you just haven't been able to uphold what I was able to bring with you. Like I carried you through your whole career, I carried you in the podcast.
Well, as you would have noticed listening, Meg is carrying me nowadays and doing a magnificent job of it. I'm happy because Meg, you may not know this. Everybody says that I was could play as a tagger and stop these opponents.
I did know that.
The best part of my whole game was like, Stokesy! Grab my man! Cal, Smithy! I was good at yelling out my teammates' names.
Yes, you were.
Are you a good listener?
No, never a good listener. Unfortunately, there was a long list of people I had to chase their man for, but we won't get into that. But Tommy Hawkins was one of them. But we won't go there.
So you're the reason why he's got such longevity in his career. He never had to chase in those early days.
I sacrificed half my career for him. Not joking. There's some good stories about Hawkeye and Bomber at the start, but we're not here to talk about Hawkeye.
No, we are here to talk a little bit about your career and what you've been doing post-career a little bit later on. But Meg, we'll get to the serious stuff straight away. The next couple of rounds, Sir Doug Nicholls round.
Yeah, absolutely. How exciting.
Yeah, big in the AFL calendar, in the AFL fixtures. Stokesy, can you, I suppose, start by telling us what's your involvement been with the club in preparation for these rounds?
Yeah, I guess probably looking into it a little bit. Now no longer a player involved in a footy club, I sort of looked at ways of being able to help and bring our programs that we've run for a long time a bit more to life. And 2 weeks' time, I'm sponsoring the round and the performance at halftime and before the game and stuff like. So to be able to come back and have a presence at the club in a different avenue than I've done in the past, to be able to give some money and support. And give back to the club that gave me so much is pretty important for me.
So we're speaking of the halftime performance of Budgerah coming along to
Perform of the game, round 11 here at GMHBA.
really exciting. Can you tell us about the performance, but also about what it means for you to be able to do that and to be able to come back and it's such a successful, perhaps full circle journey. Do you see it as such?
Yeah, it is something I haven't really thought about too much. In the fact that to be able to have played here and then be able to give back. I mean, for me, I've always wanted to be able to be appreciative of the opportunity that the club gave me, and I think I've been one that's always put that at the forefront of my thinking and the way that I look at the club. To be able to sponsor it and to be able to come back, I never look at it as a dollar figure. I look at it as a relationship.
Yeah.
Which started in 2005 and hopefully continues forever. And I'm always indebted. I mean, I come from a pretty disadvantaged background in the sense of mum and dad didn't have too much when it comes to finance. I lived in a housing commission home. But the one thing that mum and dad was always love and support. And that's one thing I love about my childhood, nothing but memories of laughter and smiling. So to be able to be in a position where I finished football, the club gave me that platform, also to be a strong person who I am, to be able to now have a successful business, to be able to sponsor and give back to the football club, it's pretty surreal, to be honest, and something I'm pretty proud of.
You mentioned the business. Probably, I don't know how many of our listeners would be aware of what you've been doing. We often get the opportunity to read some of the really brilliant articles that you write in the newspaper. We hear your voice occasionally when it comes to football, but probably a lot of our listeners right now don't know what you are doing away from the game. You've really gone and sought out that entrepreneurial spirit of your being. Tell us a little bit about what the business is and what you're doing, and that ability then to have been successful in that to sponsor things like the Round 11 halftime performance.
Yeah, Larrakia Billera is started about 3 years ago. Larrakia is obviously my people from Darwin. Billera is man in my language, and the business is in small civil construction. So we do traffic management, asphalt and concreting. We do have NDD trucks and labourers across the board. So we work in Victoria and Northern Territory. Obviously, I also have a waste management company in CWO nominees as well with which is really is going really well in a sense of the platform that we've been able to create here in Geelong. For me, was able to finish football and go, well, I've got these skill sets of being able to work with people and come up with solutions. So how do I maximise that away from football? And for me, it was really important to get away from the industry because I felt like I wasn't loving the game anymore because it was just sort of overbearing, and something that I've always been conscious of is that I was never in actually love with everything that went football. I loved playing, loved watching it for about 10 minutes, and then I get bored. And once I left the footy club, I was like, okay, now how do I use all the skill sets that I learnt playing footy? And I put that into business. And look, knowing people, understanding people, dealing with people daily is something that I just do. I just do really well. So I decided to incorporate that in business, and it's paid off, and it goes really well. We have anywhere to 100 to 180 to 110 employees across the board in Victoria, operational on a lot of the major projects here in Victoria, and a lot of people talk about you're an Aboriginal business. Well, I don't look at it that way. I look like I'm a business operator and owner that happens to be Aboriginal, and I think there's a big difference, and that's the way I look at it. So. We're getting bigger and bigger. We've got operations here out of Geelong, North Geelong. We have a massive warehouse in Lavington North where we store our machines, but it's going really well, and I love actually being able to do it because it gives me the flexibility to be like, picking up the kids and dropping them off every day and being a bit more day-to-day and hands-on with those guys.
So you speak about this. I mean, we all benefit from the skills that the game teaches us, and from what this footy club's been able to give us. You've mentioned that already. Do you see a correlation between the longevity of your career and how much you were able to pick up along the way? Because you played over 200 games, is that right?
I did. 200, not over, just 200.
200 flat.
I think there's so many parts of parallel with business and sports, but there's also stuff that you can't rest on your laurels and think there's always going to happen. And I think I probably built my career playing footy on the back end of just work hard and learn and keep evolving. And I think that's with business. For me, at the start, it was easy to do people's, but then also then you're figuring out figures and P&Ls, and you're looking through nothing but more and more spreadsheets, and I never understood them. Colin Carter was a really big mentor for me when I was playing, and even now we catch up regularly, talking about finances and understanding it. And I did a couple of courses on them to understand figures, and ever since then, now I've just become actually addicted to figures and probably more the profits and the losses, but understanding how that all works and trying to figure out solutions for how can you make more money on here and how do you cover yourself. So it's been something. I think the addiction to training is like the addiction to business. It's something that I reckon has been able to shift from that. The competitiveness of football that comes with it. We play Tuesday nights with a couple of the old timers as well that we use, but then on the rest of the day, it's sort of like, okay, now how do I get bigger and better and business? And I think it's no different to footy. You apply your craft, you work hard at it, you go back to back, and you keep working and you get better and better.
That is awesome to hear. I'm lucky enough to have Collins, my player sponsor.
Okay.
And I feel no good in any of that stuff that you're talking about. So I'm going to have to lean in there and
I didn't
do a course of my own.
I didn't listen to him for about 5 years, and then all of a sudden, now I start to understand people who've been around in business for a long, long time actually know what they're talking about. So maybe learn from their lessons, and then you can shortcut the system a little bit.
Well, speaking of learning from lessons, your career, a remarkable story, and for a lot of our listeners, they would know the football part of it a bit. Overlooked in numerous drafts, then that opportunity comes because you stuck at it and you kept playing footy in the SANFL. You get that opportunity, you grasp it absolutely with both hands. You have moments of incredible highs and wonderful success, and some moments of not so much. Would you change any of that? What you've learnt now, would you change things, or was that all part of making you what you are sitting here today?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't change a thing. I mean, not even one. I mean, there's lessons to be learned from every sort of experience in life. And for me, I look back with actually joy. And a lot of people talk about, you have a couple of lows. For me, it also is part of who you are and the makings of you, and understanding the appreciation, that the gift of being able to play AFL footy. For me, I probably wouldn't have lasted very long if I didn't get drafted. To come into the club, to finally get the opportunity that I craved, and to see your head coach in Bomber and ask who's this short, chubby man, then goes, okay, I've got my dream, but now the reality is I've got to prove myself. And to get that whack as soon as I walked in the door, then having a chip on my shoulder, which I used a lot in good, but also too sometimes it was probably bad because of the stubbornness and the, sometimes having a bit more of an attitude. But I think that's part and parcel of becoming successful. I think you've got to have the arrogance, you've got to have the confidence, but you've also got to have a chip on your shoulder to prove people wrong. I think for me, the only thing that I probably would change a little bit differently is that for a lot of my career, I was trying to prove people wrong instead of just trying to prove to people that were in my corner right. That regardless of whether you can get a kick, you're still a good person, you're a good human. And sometimes I think we dictate too much what happens out in the field to them as an individual and who they are. So that's probably one thing I've always been proud that I stayed who I was the whole journey. And I think you can attest to that I don't think I've changed at all. So I'm still cheeky.
Oh yeah.
And I can be grumpy.
I'm always fascinated between that connection between on field and off, whether it's the skills that you learn in a business sense, whether it's teamwork, but also the fact that we all bring ourselves onto the field and who we are is so a part of, I feel, how we play and perform. Now, as you're saying, perhaps it doesn't always go back the other way, but that connection between who you are as a person and who you are as a player, like private and public, it always comes up when we look at rounds like Sir Doug Nicholls' round. Do you have any reflections on the public's understanding that when you go out onto the field, it's a very personal thing?
I think my dad taught me something really early on in my career. When he came to a game and 100,000 people in the 2007 grand final, which is pretty much equivalent to the whole of the Darwin's population.
Wow, yeah.
I remember there was one time I said something smart aleck back to him in the sense of the medallion and the medal, and he said, "I'll give you one bit of advice, son. One day that crowd will disappear, and the only person that you look at yourself, the only person that'll be looking at you is the person in the mirror, and you've got to be happy with that person." And that's really something that I've held on to for a long, long time, and something that I continue to think about daily, because sometimes the game is such a beautiful aspect of our community, but also too sometimes we forget that it's just a game, and even though you're out there and you're representing your club, your teammates, your family, there's a difference sometimes when it comes to the Aboriginal people that you actually also have to represent another group of people, and that's who you are. And it's really hard, and especially when significant conversations come up in the industry, around the media, around everything that's happening in society at the moment. There's so many different layers, but also too when you're an AFL player and you're Aboriginal, there's this extra responsibility that sometimes you have to just hold your moral compass a little bit, and then you go, this is my reality, is I'm also an Aboriginal man too. And that's really hard to balance out. It takes a long time to get to a stage where you're quite comfortable in who you are and your beliefs, because I had a lot of falling overs in my career in a sense of this stumbling block. And I think Cookie was really good with me to say, actually, we're going to give you this platform, but we're going to give you a safety net underneath you to catch you. And I think that's one of the greatest things and one of the most proudest parts of this footy club for me is that safety net they gave me was, okay, go be yourself and stand up for what you believe in, and we're going to catch you no matter what. And Neil Barm, to me, never got he gets a lot of credit, but he doesn't get as much credit as I think that this place should give him because of everything he did, not only from an operations perspective, but also to a human part. He was the amount of coffees and catch-ups I had with him about that element of being an Aboriginal player, an AFL player at the same time was something that he was so supportive of me throughout my whole career.
You've been mentioning a number of people who've had that influence on you. Barmy, you mentioned there, Cookie, you mentioned there, Bomber first coming in, probably giving you a clip as you walked in the door, but an incredibly supportive coach and caring coach in his own way.
Absolutely.
Colin Carter, you're also very humbly deflecting from the fact that you contributed to that culture and understanding. And I know from my perspective as one of the leaders of the leadership group, as vice captain, you were always a sounding board. Joel Corey was always a sounding. Just those different interactions that you can have as relationships within a football club. As you now progress to a different part of your life, now as a successful business owner, as a mentor and a senior person in the Indigenous community as well, but also now as a dad to a couple of wonderful boys, one of which is grade prep with my youngest boy, and that's when we do our school pickups together. What messages are you trying to pass on to that next generation, either your own boys or to those young players in general, but young Indigenous players as well as they come in? What are those values you're trying to pass on as part of your legacy?
I think there's a lot of things that you try to pass on. I think differently to when you're mentoring someone or when you're helping them out, there's difference to being a father. I think for the father part of me is like, okay, now how do I leave this world in a better place than it is right now? We're very fortunate to live in a great country that we have in Australia, but also there's a lot of parts that are undertone to some of the stuff that goes out in the community. Doesn't always have to be black and white. Sometimes it can be just about being good humans, being a good person and making sure that you do what's right for yourself and your family and making sure that can carry on and then pass that on. One of the greatest things for me is, like I spoke about before with my family, is you talk about you want to give your sons everything that you never had. And reality is, for me, is I don't want to give my sons anything different to what I grew up, because I grew up with nothing but love and support. So if you can create that or start that as a framework to how you conduct yourself in the community, then we're going to go a lot better we're going to go a lot longer way in this harmony of reconciliation. And I think for me, sometimes it gets carried away, it gets lost a little bit, whether it's a football issue, whether it's a community issue, whether it's a black issue. And sometimes it just comes back to being a good person yourself and worrying about that.
Well said, Stokes. You always do say it so very, very well. We do have to finish up, but I do want to end on one footy-based one, because I regularly, whenever I run into you, the first question isn't necessarily, Meg, how are the kids? Oh, hey, did you see how the Cats went on the weekend? The first question is, when are you organising the next reunion?
Oh, brilliant.
Any ideas what you'd like to do, Stokesy? And I suppose one further question, is there any chance that somebody else can organise you bunch of absolute rabble of human beings that can't get anything organised, can't reply to any messages?
Yep.
Can somebody else please take over that role?
Well, there's a reason why you were the captain. And once you take that captaincy on, you take it on for life. So we were able to give you the status of Mayor of Geelong. So your responsibility for that is to continue that trade on for the rest of your life. So that's the responsibility that you took on yourself. Second of all, State of Origin's coming up, Lingy. We always get together. Me and my old housemate, Otto, we love our league. I'm a passionate Queensland supporter. So is Otto, and Moons is New South Wales. So there's always an angst and anger towards each other for 6 weeks of the year. But I think we did a good job a couple of years ago with the Wednesday night State of Origin. It just unfortunately falls on a night, school night.
School night, work
so
night.
We're a little bit older than we used to be, Cameron. So we normally have to keep that in check. But it's always great to catch up. And yeah, like you said, there's only negativity comes when someone responds. So you don't really want to open it too much.
That is true. I mean, I sent out an email to about 60 or 70 people. I'm lucky to get 2 replies.
Oh, yeah.
I write back.
Yeah, you're always good because you're always
And Kel.
yeah. But it's usually a little bit of banter between each other.
Yeah, exactly right. That won't change.
I must say, as a captain without a premiership, it's a nice issue to have. I'm trying to wrangle the troops for just some pre-season good vibes together. You guys have at least got something to celebrate. But I must say, it's been wonderful to listen to you. And whether you're speaking about success in premiership sense or being a good person or being able to give back to the club, it's fascinating and wonderful to hear about all the different ways that the game can give to you, but that you can give back, and all the different marks of success along the way. So congrats on what you're doing and what you've done. It's
well
awesome.
Done, Stokesy. Thank you so much for joining us. Really great to see you.
Thank you, Cameron. See you at pickup.
Always an outstanding chat, Mathew Stokes.
What a beautiful person.
Yeah, I could have kept asking him a million questions, and he's got so many lessons that he's learned over the years. But it's funny, I alluded to it, but he's so humble that he won't talk about the influence that he had on other people at the club and other people.
You were good
post
to get that
football.
in because it's important.
Yeah, so many times where in a leadership position you think you're steering the group in the right way, or an individual who you're trying to get back on board, and you just need those players whose opinions you really value.
Mm-hmm.
And Stokes was one who'd always give sometimes brutally honest feedback with stuff, but always from a place of this is how we can be better as a group and how we can help people and care and support those people.
Yeah, that's leadership. That's awesome.
Outstanding. So really appreciate Mathew Stokes joining us there. We better finish things up, Meg. Huge game coming up.
Got to get to Perth.
Got to jump on the plane to Perth. But before we do, as I mentioned right at the start of this and throughout, we do have a new sponsor, and it's great to have Morris Finance on board. For years, Morris has been supporting businesses and the community to generate success together. Now they are bringing their personal approach to personal finance. Cars, boats, caravans, motorbikes, jet skis, they are all about getting you out there living life. Let their team of finance specialists take on the life admin of arranging your finance so you can get on with life. Call Morris today on 1300 4MORRIS or head to morrisfinance.com.au. Great to have those guys on board, as I mentioned earlier. Fremantle, 4:35 Vic time on Saturday. Great test. Really good test over there. And just with travel, we mentioned right at the start, younger group.
Yeah.
Too. Maybe one or two
Can
come
be a blessing
back
and a
in.
curse, can't it? Getting away with the team.
Yeah, you learn to travel together, and you learn to have that unity and bond as a group together. But also a young group, maybe some players not sure how to travel. That sounds a bit strange, but
your rhythm's all shaken up, and
it's
your
funny.
food's different, and your bed's different.
And it's funny the lessons you learn when you first you go down to lunch or you go down to brekkie or dinner the night before the game. And it's all just laid out for you, and you can overeat. You can sit around a hotel room too much and just lounge around and watch movies or whatever it is. Or you can think, I've got to get out and do something, so I'll go into the city and I'll go and do this.
I've done 20,000 steps.
Yeah. So finding your rhythm of travelling as a young player and young person's really important. So a wonderful challenge for the group this week. We will be back next week, regardless.
We'll be there.
We said it was tough coming up after a loss, but we're here no matter what. You and I.
Yeah, that's true. Here we are.
And we've put 22 Cats players into the All-Australian 50.
Yeah.
We've put 12 defenders into the starting back six.
Yeah. I have this issue in my own team. Everyone's like, we're going to put a mid back. I'm like, how about putting some backs into the mids? Ooh. Yeah, I know.
Are you aiming for a mid role this year?
No, not me. I've accepted my role. And my age. Anyway, go well, boys.
Go well. Great to see you again, Meg. Thank you to all of our listeners who sent questions through. Thank you to everyone who listened. Big thanks to Mathew Stokes for joining us today. We will be back again next week, hopefully talking a big Cats victory.